Hello, and thanks so much for checking out the Coin Stories podcast video page. I'm Natalie Brunell, and I'm talking to the leading voices in Bitcoin about their backstories, career paths, and their philosophies on BTC. This podcast does not provide financial advice. This episode is brought to you by the Bitcoin Conference. It's going to be held in Miami next year, April 6th through 9th, and it's going to be the biggest Bitcoin conference yet. You can get 10% off your tickets using the code COINSTORIES and the link b.tc/conference. This episode is also brought to you by Okcoin, one of my favorite new places to buy Bitcoin where you can DCA without the crazy fees. Okcoin is the fastest growing exchange serving over 190 countries globally with the easiest onboarding and lowest fees around. They're on a mission to make learning about and buying Bitcoin easier than ever, and they're all about bringing more financial literacy to everyone, which is something I really care about as well. From being the only exchange to integrate Lightning to contributing over $1 million to Bitcoin core devs, they are doing incredible work to further the Bitcoin ecosystem. You can head to go.okcoin.com/Natalie for $50 in Bitcoin when you sign up. I'm super excited to share my guest today is pro-Bitcoin candidate for Congress, Aarika Rhodes. Aarika is an award-winning school teacher, and she's running for the 30th Congressional District here in the LA area. She would like to see a Bitcoin caucus in DC, and she's running to unseat a very anti-Bitcoin congressman. In this interview, Aarika reveals some very personal things that she's never discussed publicly before. Here's Aarika. Well, Aarika, I'm super excited to chat with you. Thank you so much for coming on Coin Stories. And we're going to start right away. We're going to take it all the way back. I know you've got a very busy campaigning schedule. So let's start at the beginning. I read that you were born in Las Vegas, Nevada. Tell me about your upbringing and your background.
Yes, so I was born in Las Vegas. My mom, this is very important. So my mom is Chinese and German, and my dad is African American. He's Black. And so my household it was really cool because I was able to get a lot of different, I have a lot of different perspectives growing up that I was exposed to. Also, half of my family is Republican and the other is Democrat. So I think that's probably why I approach politics with more of an open mind and not just hating, but being more policy solution driven. But growing up in Las Vegas is quite boring, to be honest. Like if you're growing up there, it's like really, really boring. But would say I had a really good childhood, a good education. I do believe that you need to leave when it's time I think when you graduate from high school, I think it's really important that you leave. But overall, I would say I had a good childhood.
So tell me a little bit about what your parents did, because I know that you talk on your campaign website a little bit about how you came from a modest background, and money was not necessarily something that came easily to your family.
No. So my parents are entrepreneurs. My dad's a former UFC fighter. When it was like really raw, like no rules. And so he has his own karate studio. And my mom is like a serial entrepreneur. And but I had a decent childhood. Like I wouldn't say like I lived in poverty or anything like that. I don't want to mislead anyone, but we definitely were like lower middle class, middle class. And my parents often worked 2-3 jobs to make sure my brother and I had everything that we needed. The unfortunate thing now is like with the pandemic, my parents were only even able to afford to donate $100 to my campaign. And recently my mom just became a $5 recurring donor. So I don't come from money by any means.
Well, you also mentioned that your dad has a really interesting history in Mississippi, right? Cotton farm. Is that what I read? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So my my grandfather, was one of the first cotton farm owners in Mississippi. I believe they sold that his sister, their family, like my dad's side of the family ended up selling it. But yes, he had a cotton farm.
Wow. In terms of all the cultures mixing and coming together, did you feel really different? Did you feel like you fit in?
I think it came in different phases. I think when I was younger, I identified more with my Asian side, as weird as that might sound. And then as I got to middle and high school, more of my Black side, I went to predominantly white schools. And so what ended up happening when I got to high school, in middle school, they started to bus kids in from different areas to my schools. And so it would diversify my schools. And that's when I really started to go to, schools where it was more people of color. But I think for me, as much as like I embrace my, both sides, I tried not to let it be what solely defines who I am as a person. And my parents were really keen on that you, even though you're Asian and you're Black, you're this, you're smart, you're creative, you're imaginative, you are a hard worker, like all these different characteristics. But to the outside world, I am still like a Black woman, and I get treated as such, but I never allow my race to hold me back from doing the things that I want to do.
I love that message. I think that's so important. So when you were young, what did you want to be when you grew up? Did you want to be a teacher?
No, never. This is really funny. This is a good question. When I was really little, I wanted to be a baker. When I was like really little, and I used to like want to bake, and I would bake. And now I'm 36 and I can't cook to save my life. Like I can't cook at all. So I would say that was what I want to do. And then when I got a little bit older, I was into writing, and then I wanted to be, in the entertainment, like comedian, and then I ended up becoming a teacher.
A comedian? Do you do stand up on the side or something?
So before I became a teacher, I did a year of stand-up, actually. People don't know that about me, but I did 1 year of comedy. And I had my own show, actually, and I was very serious about it. I practiced, and I came up with a lot of amazing people, went to open mics with a lot of people that everyone knows. And it was such a great time of my life. But it wasn't for me. Like when you go on tour with people, or you start to do stand up in different like big comedy clubs and stuff, and you see like the back end of it, it's like I was like, this is not my purpose. But I have a deep appreciation for comedians, and I don't think people realize all that goes into making a joke funny. It's really a lot of work. You're the first person to find this out, by the way. I haven't told anyone this.
Wait, this is amazing. Okay, wait, I have two questions. Number one, you must be influenced by some comedians, or at least one, right? So who's your favorite comedian? And number two, you have to give me something. Like what was the joke, or what was the stick that got the most laughs? You have to do one.
Okay, because I adore you, I'll play around with this. But so my favorite comedian, and this is controversial, I guess, maybe controversial, but I would have to say Richard Pryor and Dave Chappelle. I'm huge fans of. Right. I think that they're geniuses. I think that they are really masterful at what they do. Controversial, but I appreciate the artistry that goes into comedy. Okay, I don't agree with them on everything, but I do appreciate what they do. The joke. Well, obviously, so when you tell people a joke, you have to have the venue in the right setting. But I'll give like a theme of one that I had.
Okay,
I had a joke about when I was in 5th grade and I wanted to be in the school choir, and I can't sing, but I really wanted to be in the school choir. And so I told my dad, we practiced, I auditioned, I didn't get into it, and I'm not telling you as if I was a joke. I'm just telling you the synopsis of it. And then he goes back to the music teacher, and she's like, have you heard your daughter sing before? And then makes me sing, and then my dad leaves the building, and it was one that got a lot of, because I would do a whole act outfit and everything. And then I had one about I usually just made fun of myself being like a nerd. I never like did anything provocative. I usually just poke fun at myself.
I love it. Okay, I'm gonna definitely be Googling this afterwards to try to find some videos of you. Are there some videos? Are you at the improv or no? All right, well, I'm going to try to get that out of you. Maybe we'll post something. But okay, so, well, I did read also that you went to public school. So did you sort of feel like when you decided to become a teacher that there were some things that probably you loved about your public school education, or about your schooling in general, and then maybe some things that you as a teacher wanted to bring to the table and change?
So I did grow up and go to public schools. I had great teachers, and I had horrific teachers. I had one teacher that got me into the orchestra, and I learned how to play the cello. And it's something that I've been able to sustain my entire life. So I actually can play the cello. Not great anymore because I don't.
You're a celloist, a comedian. Like, are you a martial arts fighter? You
I grew
are.
up in karate. Well, my dad's
I
a
was gonna
karate
say.
teacher, so I definitely grew up doing karate and boxing. But I will forever be grateful for the exposure of that. I think my greatest teachers were my professors, to be honest. But I did have a decent public school education. I believe that it should be more than lecture style and worksheets. And like I had one teacher every week, it was a packet, and then you had to do the packet, and it was like so like it was like scratching a chalkboard. And I think even now as a teacher, I'm intentional about being really fun and exciting and been doing opulent things. Like tomorrow, my students are going to be doing a glow stick lab, and my kindergartners are learning the alphabet through the periodic table. And each letter is going to be a different experiment related to that particular element. So I think going through that education system, not being able to read until I was in the third grade, and I take literacy very seriously. And I would say that was the hardest part about public school for me, is like I could not read until the third grade. And I said to my mom recently, I was like, how come you guys didn't help with that? Like, why did you guys let me get to the third grade? And you're like, Aarika, you act like we knew that we didn't have the internet. We didn't have those resources. We didn't know. She's like, things that were so different then. I had to remind myself, like, that's true. Like things were different then. But now I had one teacher who's like, wow, this kid can't read. And she stepped in and made sure that I was able to read. And now I'm a reader, obviously, and successful. But public schools need to be modernized. We need to give teachers resources. We need to make sure teachers can take their students on field trips. And like when you go to a private school, like they're able to take their kids to Sacramento. They're able to do all these other things and leverage their students' intellect and curiosity in ways that we don't necessarily do in the public schools. And I think if we can do that, our public schools will be just as competitive, if not more, than our private schools. And so I really think it's worth, we need to start investing them in the right way,
And you went to Cal State Northridge, right? So you moved from Nevada over here to the LA area, essentially. Is that what happened? And was there like a moment in time that you remember where you were like, I want to be a teacher, and specifically I want to teach a certain grade?
Yes. So I've lived such an interesting life. It's weird how like
I love it. It's perfect for this. This is the interview series for it.
I know, but it's like now talking to you, it's just thinking like, God, I've done like so many things. But so I just happened to meet this woman that was an onset tutor. And I was like, wow, like what kind of job is that? I've never heard of an onset tutor. Like, what is that? She's like, yeah, I tutor kids on movie sets and commercials, and I make $3,000 to $5,000 a day. I was like, say what? That is like that is so cool. And I was like, then you can make $3,000 to $5,000 a day and pursue your dreams. I was like, that's so cool. So I switched my major into education, and then I had to do my observation hours, and I went into a classroom, girl, and it was fifth graders that could not read. And going back, I knew exactly how they felt because that was me, but in the third grade. And then I was like, you know what? I think I can do a better job at teaching. And so I decided to stick with education. And then I just ended up not ever being an onset tutor. I just ended up being a teacher, a regular teacher, for way, way, way less money.
Oh my gosh, wait, that's fascinating.
Yeah, people don't know that's a real job. I mean, you can make a ton of money doing that.
And did you ever do that, or how does it work? How do you become a teacher, and like who goes into what grade and all that?
So like, are you asking about to be an onset tutor or just a classroom teacher?
No, classroom teacher, what you went into.
So I got hired. My first job was I needed a job. And this principal, she just thought I was nice. So she's like, you know what, we'll give her a chance. It's like when you have no teaching experience, like it's like people don't like take a gamble on you. And I was like, let me just dream up a science curriculum. I could do this. And she's like, okay. She gave me X amount of dollars. I don't remember what it was, but it was modest. And I taught first through fifth grade science. And I dreamed up this curriculum, and it led me to get Teacher of the Year by the LA Clippers. And Amazing. It was super hands-on, super fun. I would dress up, whatever it got the kids excited about it. And then that just kind of started my trajectory of being a science educator. And then I was like, if I'm really going to do this and teach kids to read through science and get kids proficient in math through science, I need a master's degree. And so then I went and got my master's degree, and then I got published and all these things, blah, blah, blah. And so now here I am 10 years later, running to serve on the education and labor committee to bring these type of ideas and curriculum to the nationally, like try to get it done nationally, because I think this is the way that we inspire kids to be thinkers, problem solvers, independent, love learning, and inspire teachers. And we got to inspire teachers by giving them a little bit more cushion, like money to do the things that they want to do. And so that's where I'm at now.
I love that. Okay, wait, let's dig into that a little bit more, because I've covered so many education stories as a reporter, and a lot of them, you probably aren't surprised, were like education board meetings, or even, the teachers really protesting, wanting a raise, because here's the superintendent who's making, like, literally in California, $250,000, $300,000 a year, and the teachers are fighting for a raise of, like, a tiny percent, and there's not enough for supplies in the classroom, for books. So can you kind of paint a picture? I mean, I know all schools are different, and each area might have its own problems, but where you've taught, can you talk about just sort of the economic state of education?
So I've taught in independent and public schools. There's no comparison. As a teacher, you're more heavily funded in private schools because they have more autonomy and say over how money's allocated, right? When you're in a public school, it's like a whole other system. And so you nailed it. We know where the money's going. And for me, I'm always of the belief, start with the kids and making sure they have everything. They almost like the trickle up model, but like start with the kids. What do kids need to be successful? And then go from there. Then the next most important person to the kid is the teacher, and then go from there. For me, and this might be controversial to say, but it is what it is. A lot of times people that can't teach go into administration. And then they're trying to say how to do it. Teachers know how to teach. And those are the people that keep schools going. And anytime people give teachers a hard time, I really don't like that, because people don't realize how hard it is to teach 30 kids with different parents, and in their home life, where those are out of our controls. And then you have people that don't know how to teach a lot of the times, telling you how to do. I have one person in my mind that I'm thinking could never do what I do. She could never do it, but she always wants to tell me how to do it. But you ask her to do the same thing, she could not ever do it. But she's telling all of us how to do it. And there's one person in my mind, and she knows what she is. And I know that, and I'm just myself, and I'm just saying it like it is. I believe that if we want to really fix our education system, if we really want to do right by young people, invest in kids, then teachers, and then let everything else. Now, I get that money has to be for, the just like your building, electricity, just everyday things. Like, I understand all that, but there's no reason why there's so much money and it's not going to young people. I just think it's crazy.
No, I completely agree with you. And it's crazy that it just seems like every year it's getting worse. Yet, on sort of the surface, on the headline level, it's like, here's this money we passed for education, or, oh, here's Prop 47, which is really the intention is to give money back to schools. And so it seems like there are these broad headlines or these promises that more money's going to go there. But yet the problem seems to just get worse and worse on every level. And
the money doesn't go there. Mm-hmm. It doesn't go there. And we all know that it doesn't go there. And people are starting to wake up and see, like, oh, the stuff that you're saying is that you're doing is not happening. And so that means that there needs to be more transparency. It's unfortunate, especially with like parents that work 2 or 3 jobs. They can't participate actively in the school system to be able to really have a say, but you have other areas where parents have the flexibility to be able to have a say and to advocate and to be active in the school. And that's why they're not having the same struggles. You know, I think we have to really just call it what it is. When you are of a certain class and you don't have the ability to be able to participate, they do you dirty. They get over on you because they know that they can. And so that's why for me, I am absolutely in this fight, because that's not okay. You can't take advantage of people because they're trying to put food on the table. You can't do that. That's not right. You can't take advantage because, you know, these parents are not informed correctly or don't know how to get the resources in order to be informed. That's an injustice in and of itself. There's real problems with the system, and we have to start exposing it for what it is. So that's why I'm a straight shooter. I just say it how I feel, because, you know, we've gone too long for kids to leave fifth grade illiterate and hating math, hating science, which then causes another array of problems. Yeah. So if you want to fix crime and all these different things, educate our kids. We need to make sure that they're educated.
I love that. I love that you're a straight shooter. I think that's so appreciated, especially in politics, where I feel like we just get the, you know, the campaign speech, and people aren't really real and they aren't really honest about where their money's coming from. And so that's one thing I love about you. Before we move into sort of this journey into why you wanted to run, obviously, and also how you got into Bitcoin, just out of curiosity, from your experience as a teacher, how is financial education in our country? What is the state of financial literacy in our schools?
I don't think there is financial literacy being taught actively in our schools. Are there some amazing teachers out there that are like, okay, this is important and we need it, and then they slip it in? Absolutely. But is it its own curriculum? No. And it absolutely should be. When kids leave 12th grade, they should have a robust understanding of personal finance. It is an imperative. It's something that I'm incredibly passionate about. They should understand the way credit cards work, interest rate works, how to buy a car, loans, compound interest, how do check cashing companies work, what is the 400%, sorry, those are my cats. What's a 400% interest rate? What is all, they need to know what that is.
And they don't.
They don't. They don't understand how to save. They don't understand all these different things. And if we really want to address poverty, and we really want to talk about prosperity and autonomy over one's life, let's make sure people understand finance. Yeah. And for me, I even had my parents were even like, they taught me about personal finance, but not in great depth. And I've had my own personal financial mistakes. You know, and I think if I would have known what I know now, I might be in a very different situation. And so, and then with it being even harder to own a home and things of that nature, it's even more pressing that we need it. And with cryptocurrency emerging and becoming the new innovative technology and something that young people are really gravitating towards, it needs to be discussed and talked about so they understand what it is, what the investment is, and which I know we're going to get into. I don't want to go on a tangent, but I think it's all incredibly, incredibly important.
Yeah, there's something else I want to ask you out of curiosity, because I've also been an educator now for just a couple of years, 3 years. I'm an adjunct at USC, and there's something really interesting that I'm seeing, and that is when I was in college or, you know, or in earlier school, I would have never imagined myself going to a professor and saying to them that, you know, I didn't turn something in because I was just really stressed out. Like I suddenly felt anxiety, or, you know, something came over me and I had a bad breakup, or, you know, too many assignments. You know what? I can't turn it in this week. And something that's really surprised me is I have students on a very regular basis coming to me with a lot of issues that deal with psychology, depression, anxiety. They can't turn in their assignments. That's an acceptable excuse for most classes, that, hey, if I was stressed out, I couldn't do it. And it seems like a lot of professors are okay with that. It just seems like kids today, and teenagers and college students, they're dealing with a lot of stress and they're not able to handle it maybe as well, or maybe they're just more vocal about it than in the past. I would have never imagined going to my professor and saying, oh, hey, I had a really bad breakup. I've been dealing with stress all week. I can't turn this in. Do you experience that on some level as well? Just students that are dealing with a lot of sort of emotional distress, and they bring that in and maybe they can't turn in assignments, or it just seems like psychology has changed with younger people.
Yeah, and I think it's also parenting has changed too. So I think that's a part of it. I teach elementary school now, so and I've been in that space for a few years. So it's been a minute since I've taught high school, or even eighth grade. It's been a few years, and but I have seen that, and I think that they're like I'm trying to like pretend like let's say take pandemic out of it. Can we take pandemic because obviously that's a whole thing. I think we live in a time where parenting has kind of changed, where it's almost like the I'm trying to say articulate this well. I think we live in a time where parenting is more of like making sure their kid is happy no matter what and not really teaching them how to prepare for the real world always. Like, but that could be I'm a sum total of my experience. So my parents are not my friends. They're not my best friends. You know,
Same.
they're my parents and they always try to raise me to be tough, a problem solver. They're like, we're not going to be here forever. So you need to be able to take care of yourself. And so I wasn't really friends with my parents like that.
It's not that like trophy mentality, you know, everybody gets a trophy,
But
everyone's great. I
and
mean,
I'm a big advocate against that. I'm not for
yeah.
that. I've always pushed back on that because it's not a reflection of the real world. That's wonderful that you tried. That's so great that you tried. Maybe that's just not your thing. Maybe you're just not good at that thing. Maybe you're good at this thing. And I think we have to get to a place where we celebrate, you know, the unique talents of other people and be able to say, like, that's so cool that she's an artist and I'm good at dancing or I'm good at math and she's good at writing or whatever. I think I'm not for everyone gets a trophy. I actually hate it to be honest. And
Right.
it's not a reflection of the real world. In our election, there's going to be one winner. There's going to be one winner. Whoever works the hardest wins. And whoever the voters like is going to be the representative. And if I were to lose, I would go to Brad Sherman with honor and integrity. Good job. I wish you the best of luck. And please, you know, advocate for these things. Maybe we'll see you. I'll try again. You know, depends on how it works out. And when I would expect him to have the class and decency to do the same thing, we're both not going to represent our district. Right. So I think that's a really slippery slope to get children used to that. And there's actually research that shows that that's detrimental to a kid as they get older, because then they can't live up to certain expectations. I think there's one thing telling kids, do the best you can do it, keep working hard. But I think just saying that it's good just for the sake of good is a disservice. So when you do that, I think that can also build anxiety because it's like, now I have to live to this, even though, you know what I mean? It just becomes like a whole thing. But a lot of schools are implementing, you know, like SEL, like mental health and having more like conversations with counselors. So kids have an outlet. I think that parents work so much and they're not able to invest the same amount of time that they would have because of our economy. It's so expensive to live. It's really hard. So yeah, yes, I see it. To answer your question, yes, I see it.
Yeah, no, I just think it's really interesting. I mean, I've covered obviously also like the terrible situations of like mass shootings, and clearly there's so many mental health issues facing young people. And, you know, and even just to clarify, I mean, I felt stressed in college for sure. And I felt depressed at times. It's just, I would have never gone to my teacher and said that. And I think it's just so interesting and also a little bit detrimental when we have sort of a new generation that has to have like trigger warnings and safe spaces. And it's like they're not as strong in terms of just facing adversity, which really worries me. But on the flip side, I also see that like they grow up with social media, you know, cyberbullying, all of this stuff affects our brains. I think their parents are working hard to, you know, put food on the table because things are getting more and more expensive and it's harder to live even on two incomes. And so, you know, maybe the parents aren't around and the kid's dealing with stuff and just sitting on a screen all day. So it's like, you know, I also understand that, but it's sad that seems to be the direction we're going in, that more and more people are struggling in this way. And I think, you know, you are the first person that would be able to share all the foundation is built right there in that the first few years of schooling, and like who you become, the teachers that influence you, the classes that you take and the things that you read, that lays those first bricks, right, for who you're going to be as a person. So it's super important to be in an environment where you're encouraged, but also like challenged in the right way. Do you agree?
Yes. And I do agree. I hear what you're saying, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying, because we do need to find ways for kids to have grit and to persevere, because life is really, really hard. And, like, I actually even recently talked to my students about what is hard. What does that really mean? Gluing tissue paper on a piece of construction paper is not hard. Maybe it's annoying, maybe it's tedious, maybe like I don't feel like doing it, but it's not hard.
Yeah.
Hard. Let me talk to you about hard. Trying to solve poverty is hard. Climate change is hard. Trying to get legislators to do the right thing is hard. Like that's hard. Trying to do big things like that. That's hard. Gluing's not hard. So we got to keep perspective on what that means. And I think also we have to remind kids the most successful people in the world failed multiple times and they got back up. Mm-hmm. Their determination to win was far greater than anything. They had that mentality of like, I'm going to do this no matter what it takes.
Oh yeah. And I think failure is the best teacher. Like if you just have it easy and everyone just coasts you and gives you the right, the good grade and treats you like you have, bubble wrap, you're not going to get anywhere, I don't think.
I believe me, I absolutely agree with that. And I think we have to also remind kids that when you work hard at something and then you are successful, that feeling is unlike anything. And so even in my science lab, sometimes I design them purposely to be hard, where they have to fail. We'll try again. Well, what's another way? What's another way? Try another way. And then finally, oh, we got it. Oh, you worked through it. You thought through it. I didn't do it for you. Now you're independent. You could do it. See, you're stronger than you think you are, and I think it takes like reminding people. And sometimes I have to remind myself that like, I'm stronger than I think I am, to do it. And I think that's why you can't just give everyone everything all the time.
Yeah.
You got to work for certain things. Do I believe that we should have a floor to stand on? Like, a better social safety net? Yes. I think we need to fix some systems? Yes. But that doesn't replace actually working for something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love it. In fact, I would love to just sit in on one of your classes one day because you seem like a really, really fun teacher.
Thank you.
Okay, so what made you decide that you want to now shift and go into politics? I mean, because you could have run to become, in the administration or make some changes just within your own educational environment, but why run for politics?
I was never like a political person. I always voted, and I always like paying attention, watch the news, that level. But when this last Democratic primary, I made the point, like, I'm going to be very active. Like, I want to be like involved. I'm going to pick my candidate and I'm going to support them and all that good stuff. And then I was first supporting Kamala. Then I shifted to Andrew because he resonated with me more. And he was talking about financial literacy, automation, not really bashing Trump, just saying like, well, why are they voting for someone like Trump, right? And I love that. I was like, okay. And he works across the aisle. He talks to everyone, and I was like, I need that. I need someone that can talk to everyone. And so long story short, I canvassed for him all across the country. He suspended. And I was like, but these policies are so good. These are some good ideas. Campaign finance, ranked choice voting, democracy dollars, universal basic income. I know that's controversial with Bitcoiners, but I think it's a good idea. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna consider running. Then, girl, the pandemic hit. The disparities in education were so catastrophic. I was like, oh no, I'm doing this, because there was no advocacy for young people. No one was talking about the young people, rarely ever. I didn't find me a clip of a politician fighting really hard for young people. You can't find it, right? And so I filed, our campaign blew up, and now here we are in a position to unseat this guy. It's so crazy. And it goes back to what you were saying. It's not being raised to have everything handed to you, but being raised to like, you could do hard things, you're strong, you're independent, you're capable, like having parents to raise you to think like that. You could solve that problem. Aarika, you could solve poverty. You could solve education. Like, why not? Why not you? Like, that's how I was raised. And so then now here we are trying to really solve it. And I think I found a way to solve close to solving poverty. I think I found a solution to part of the problem, a good chunk of the problem.
Okay, well, let's chat a little bit about that, because obviously you're really passionate about this, and I think it's really great when we have people in public office who haven't just been politicians, right? I'm actually sick of that. I'm sick of seeing people who have been decades in office and the problems are getting worse and they get reelected and they have, mansions in Tahoe and speaking fees that are millions of dollars, and it's kind of just like, really? Like, I thought this was about public service, right? So why do you feel like you can make a difference, and specifically, what are your ideas?
I know I can make a difference because I have a work ethic like no other. I wake up at 4, I go to bed at 11, and I've brought this campaign this far working a full-time job because I care so deeply. So I have a work ethic like no other. Nobody that's even in this race works harder than I do, not even Brad. And so that's number one. That's why I know I can make a difference, because when you want to make a difference, you put in the work. And I think actions speak louder than words. 2, I genuinely care about this stuff. I don't have any interest or desire to be a millionaire. You don't go into teaching, right? I could have been the onset tutor making $5,000-$10,000 a day, but no, the kids that couldn't read and taking a lower pay was more enticing to me than that route, right? So clearly I'm not about money. I live in a one little bedroom apartment with my 2 little kittens, and I'm content. I don't seek that stuff. So my heart's in the right place, and I can talk to people no matter where they are politically. I will meet people where they're at, and I will have a real conversation and really work super intellectually hard to find common ground. And I'm very proud about that of my campaign, even though I get pushback. Why do you talk to Republicans? Why do you talk to that? Because they're human beings too. And I have people in my district that are Republicans, and you can't exclude people just because they're Republicans. And not everyone is racist. Not everyone hates Donald Trump. Some people that are conservative actually have liberal social values. They just don't want to be taxed to death. Milk is so expensive. I understand. So that's why my solution that I'm really trying to get a lot of attention to is foster care reform. So for me, when I think of poverty, I had it all backwards until I was under the bridges. I was literally going under the freeway overpasses. Like I was under them, talking to people that are experiencing homelessness. And when 10, 20, 30 times you start hearing like, oh, I came from the foster care system. What? Then you go back and you're like, what? This thing with the foster care, what is going on? I go back and I do the research. I go back and look at the data. Well, that makes sense. Half of the 500,000 people in our country are in the foster care system, and we have 66,000 of them in Los Angeles. And when they age out, they fall directly into poverty or our prison system. Yeah. Well, let's start there. Let's start with that system. Let's fix that. Okay, well, you go and start looking at the system. Oh, okay, they're making a lot of money off this system. Oh, I see how okay, so there's millions to be made here. That's why we're not fixing it. And that's what I was like, that's the problem, is people are making millions off the backs of the poor. Yeah. And so I think if we fix the system and we do an overhaul and we implement very specific key things, then we can fix the system. And then when kids age out, they can flourish, live a dignified life, and it won't cost taxpayers so much money in the social safety net stuff, prison system, because incarcerate, kids in juvie are like $120K to keep a kid in juvenile detention center. Like, we should be educating our kids, not incarcerating them. So anyway, that's another slippery slope. But
well, let me ask you, and this will sort of lead us and segue us into how you learned about Bitcoin and why you became passionate about it. But, obviously a lot of people in the Bitcoin space, they really advocate for smaller government because they see sort of this effect of, people, the spending is too high and the money ends up in the wrong places, right? And it creates these sort of moral hazards that they talk about, where all of a sudden the money's pooling with people that are close to the politicians or, the advocacy groups that are benefiting from essentially the problem continuing, as opposed to going directly to the source and helping, for example, the foster kids that you're talking about or the homeless people. So, that tends to skew a little bit more to the right. And I know that you mentioned you've had people in your family who are Republican, you have people who are Democrat. So Can you talk just a little bit about that? Because once you start talking about spending, it seems like the left wants to spend more and the right wants to spend less, but some of the things they want to do are controversial, because today it's like, you can't be mean, you can't take away money from the homeless, or you can't tell them not to live somewhere. So how do you fall in that divide?
And this is where we have to have a better conversation and better messaging with this. So like people like myself, that like I support the progressive policies. I have progressive policies on my platform. But I look at it like we need to reallocate money. So we have all these, for example, we have programs that are not working. Well, why are we still funding them? Well, instead of like printing more money or allocating more money, why don't we first just like audit our government and figure out what's not working here? What are we putting money into that's like not even helping or benefiting or leveraging anyone? And let's start there. I'm sure if we did that, girl, we can find billions of dollars. Want to know why? Because we did that. Our campaign on the very onset, because one of the guys that works on my team, he's like, if you're going to have these kind of policies, you need to know how to pay for it. And I was like, yeah, that's right. And he's like, maybe we should start with the federal budget. And so we literally took the entire federal budget. And yes, it's true. The policies that we have cannot be funded through the current federal budget, right? So then we had the idea of, well, what if we audited and we went through the programs that are not working? Well, now we have money to change programs. So that's my mentality and my mindset going into some of these things. And to me, universal basic income, which is very controversial under the Bitcoin community, I get it. But imagine if you take foster care when they have nothing when they age out. A year prior, they get financial literacy. They're on track to graduate. We're making sure that they're enrolled in college or a trade school, because I don't think college is for everyone, right? We set them up and we make sure, and then they have a universal basic income to leverage them. And then they're able to flourish and have a better start at life. Then we save money in the back end by not having to pay for all those additional services. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. Well, I'm curious to learn a little bit more then, because how did you get into Bitcoin? How did you discover it, and how far down the rabbit hole did you get? Did you read the Bitcoin Standard or some of these other really popular books? Like, where are you at?
So Brad, who is very anti-Bitcoin, well, let's walk it back. When I first announced that told people I want to run the kids on my campaign, you got to accept Bitcoin. You got to put Bitcoin on your platform. I was like, no. I don't know what that is. And I'm not sure about that. And so like that's very important. So then fast forward, Brad, who's actively in Congress trying to ban Bitcoin, obviously upset a lot of the people in the Bitcoin community. And Dennis Porter reached out to me. He's like, where do you stand on Bitcoin? And then I was like, okay, maybe this keeps coming up. Maybe I need to do my due diligence. Like kids keep bringing it up. People in my district have asked me, do I support Bitcoin? I was like, maybe I should do my due diligence. So I met with Dennis. He introduced me to a lot of amazing people, and they sat down with me for 3 hours, gave me articles, book recommendations. I read them all. Bitcoin Standard was one of them. And I was like, why would he ban this? That's so crazy. This is innovative. This can create jobs. This is like next level internet. And I got so excited about it. And I was like, no. We are absolutely supporting this. And that's kind of like how it evolved.
Wow, amazing. Well, tell me a little bit more. I mean, because when you learn about Bitcoin, it's not just really learning about the technology, right? And like how it was all programmed and the monetary policy, but you're literally, I feel like, pulling back the layers on a broken financial system that we've had for decades now. The fact that our dollar's no longer backed by gold, we're printing so much money and it's going to certain places. And I mean, it's really like, against the Fed and against some of the policies that are happening in Washington. So what did you think about all of that and the history of money that you read about?
I think for me, I went right to like the banking system, and I was like, well, let's see how much they're making. And then I just zoomed in specifically, when would be the best time to stop banking fees? The pandemic, right? Did they stop the banking fees? No. Did they make billions off of it? Yes. Is that why a lot of African-American Latinos have invested into Bitcoin? Yes. Did pawn shops leverage and make a lot of money during the pandemic? Yes, because they're unbanked. And so now that just right there, that piece right there is why I absolutely support Bitcoin. And I understand why people invest in it, because we have so many people that are unbanked, and your banking system should not be a pawn shop or a check cashing place that makes 400% interest rate and keeps you poor.
Mm-hmm.
That's not okay for me. Like I care very deeply about addressing poverty. And so and also too, I just being straight up, when I started to explore Bitcoin, and I was like, when I'm canvassing, I was like, how's it like, oh, so what do you think about Bitcoin? Oh, I own a ton. Oh, what do you think about Bitcoin? Oh my God. That's like you're into crypto. It was kind of starting that. And then I met a single mom. She's like, oh, I bought diapers for my kids or because of that investment. I had a friend who was a veteran, was homeless, bought Bitcoin early on, showed me her wallet. I almost died. She's like, Aarika, Bitcoin pulled me out of poverty. Okay. Wow. So when you hear stories like that, you can't be anti-Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So I'm just curious, I mean, based on everything that you know about Bitcoin, where do you see it in the future? Like, do you think that it's possible for the US government to potentially put it on its balance sheet, you know, put it in its reserves? Do you think that it will coexist with the dollar, maybe save the dollar? Because right now we've basically been collapsing the purchasing power through inflation. Do you think that we could move into the Bitcoin standard? Like, what do you think?
I don't know. I'm still learning. So I don't know what its future is. In my opinion, I believe it could potentially be the jobs of the future. That's what I'm thinking. I just spoke to a bunch of high school students, and one of this young boy, one of his questions was like, do you support Bitcoin? I said, yes. He's like, you got my vote. And to me, that's like crazy. Like, you have a senior in high school, that's their number one issue, and earn a vote because I support Bitcoin. And so when I hear that, that makes me think like this, like there's jobs creation there. This is really important to young people. And I think it's something that we should take care of. Seriously, do I know the future of it? No, I don't. I think it has limitless possibilities if you leave it alone. Mm-hmm. If you leave it alone. I think trying to regulate it to death and manipulate it, I think is not a wise move. It's meant to be left alone.
Do you think that Brad, who's been in office for so long, do you think he's against it just because he benefits from the fiat system? Do you think he just hasn't done the homework? Like, why do you think he's against it?
Oh, because he's backed by the big banks. All of his money are their big banks. Those are his donors. Check cashing, pawn shops, big banks. That's how he stays. That is where he gets a bulk of his money. So, I mean, it's in his best interest politically to try to ban it, to keep it, because don't the bankers, the people that fund his campaign, don't they hurt if Bitcoin takes off? Doesn't that hurt them?
Well, how hard is it to unseat someone who's been in office for so long and who has so much money behind them?
Someone that's liked, it's very hard. Someone that's unliked is very easy if you can build up the name recognition and have the capital to go against him. Like, we have set an ambitious goal of raising $1 million by the end of January. Congressman Brad Sherman has almost $4 million. We don't need $4 million. We don't need $4 million. We work, we knock on doors, we talk to voters, we phone bank, all those things. We have a really robust, canvassing system. So we don't need, he can raise 20 million for all I care. It doesn't matter. As long as we get our million, we're forced to be reckoned with, because he's not beloved in our district. You can't go up against someone like me and have done nothing really, and people see a difference in their community and think your seat's safe. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're going up against someone that actually does the work, that actually is seen in the community, that really cares and involved, but I really don't know if I would take money from everyday people to primary them when someone's doing their job. I would just stay teaching, right? And just, so he's absolutely beatable, but in order to unseat him, we just have to hit our internal campaign goals. And the biggest one is the $1 million. If we can raise that, it's over. And I personally think it would be so cool to have that story out there, that elementary school teacher unseats Brad Sherman with Bitcoin and young people and the Black community. I think that'd be like really, really cool. So
okay, wait, so before I start to wrap up, so how can people help you? How can people get you to $1 million? Any events or links or what?
So the best way is to donate to our campaign. The max donation is $2,900. And so you can go to aarikaforcongress.com. So that's AARIKAFOR Congress, and donate. The max is $2,900. We need 300 and let me look at my chart. 320 max donors. I have my vision board in front of me, but we need 320 max donors, and we will hit our $1 million. And if you can't, even if you did $20, it all adds up. And then phone bank, if you're local, vote. Tell everyone you know that lives in the San Fernando Valley to vote for us. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, whatever. Vote for our campaign. And that's the best way. Definitely the money and the votes.
Well, Aarika, the things that stand out about you to me are your passion, and you seem very driven by ethics and virtues, which I really appreciate, and you're clearly extremely hardworking. When you get to Congress, I'm going to say when instead of if, when you get to Congress, I really do feel like the system has a lot of people who probably are so well-intentioned come in and they want to change things, and they get there, and all of a sudden you're in politics, right? And politics, I was taught once in my grade school, it was politics equals who gets what at what cost and because of what relationships. And it always just kind of stuck with me. So what will you do in order to ensure that the influences around you don't pull you in one way or another? Because I'm sure you're going to have lobbyists who are pouring, money your way, wanting to support you, and everything's so divided into red and blue. And you seem to be someone who's kind of like you're more centrist almost, which is very
rational. I like to think I'm rational and reasonable. And if you could present a better argument to solve the problems, please give it to me, because for me, the end goal is to solve the problem, whether it's my idea. So if you think foster, like Aarika, that's not going to help solve poverty. Well, what is your idea? And let me hear it. And so I like to think I'm rational and reasonable. And I need to answer this question, because people bring this up all the time. You're going to change if you get there. No, I'm not. I've already walked away from people that have millions of dollars that said that they can get me X, Y, Z. No, thank you, because it's not all money is good money. I've already walked away from money because it doesn't align with my values. And the people that have donated to me are teachers, truck drivers, nurses, like everyday ordinary people, waitresses. I have like recurring donors that are $1 because that's all they can afford. Those are the people technically that I'm supporting. And have I been financially supported by the Bitcoin community? Yes. Am I thankful and grateful for that? Absolutely. And because I'm grateful, yes, there's a deep loyalty to that. And even if you guys stop supporting me, like stop donating, I still support Bitcoin because I do think it's of the future. And if young people care about it, I care about it because I care about young people. I don't have children. I want children one day. And so this is really for them and my unborn, or if I adopt, then my adopted child. So I can't be bought. I just can't. And I am who I am, and I'm unapologetic about it. And I think you've kind of seen that.
I love it. I think we need more people like you. I mean, Aarika, where do you think your values come from? Is it like, do you attribute that to your parents, or like what gave you this kind of strong will and this sense of right from wrong and just wanting to help people?
My dad. Getting emotional.
How so?
My dad grew up so poor. Like, he grew up so poor, and he lost his mom when he was 9. And he just had to work hard for every single thing that he has, and he almost went pro in the NBA. He is an incredible athlete. He almost went pro in the NBA. He was a UFC fighter. He worked 2 or 3 jobs at times when I was in school. And I will never forget this. This is a true story. There's 2 stories. I'll make them really quick because I know you got to go. But the first one we were at a pancake shop, because I love pancakes. It's like my favorite food. And the waitress gave him too much change back, like a lot more change back. And he goes, ma'am, you gave me way too much change back. And he gave it back to her, where I can see other people not doing that. But anytime there was an opportunity to do the right thing, he's always done the right thing. Every single time. You know, I've seen my mom be selfish. She'll give the shirt off her back to someone. I've just seen that my whole life. And these are people that don't have much, you know, they do with what they have, right? And then the other time was when I was little. My dad took me to the apartment that he grew up in, and it's in like the worst part of Las Vegas. And he said, Aarika, if you do drugs and you smoke and you party, you get into trouble, this is where you're going to end up. So to this day, I never smoked weed. I don't do drugs or nothing, like never. And if you do, that's not judging. I'm just saying I have never done that. And so they've instilled these certain values in me that have carried through my entire adult life. And I kid you not, and you could look at my phone, but I have very early on in my notes, my why. And it says at the end of this, when this is all said and done, I need to be able to look at myself in the mirror and never have compromised my morals and values for the win. I need to be able to look my parents in the eye and make them proud as a daughter. And I need to look my students in the eye and make them proud of their teacher, that they can make the impossible possible. That's why I always talk about impossible all the time. And so that was my non-negotiable when I submitted the form to run for Congress. And I'm unwavering about that. And when you really want change and you really want to see people's lives improve, you have to be relentless about that, even if it pisses people off. Mm-hmm. You just have to be. And I don't need to be liked by everyone. I have very thick skin. I don't need to be liked by everyone. I just need the job to get done without compromising my morals and values. And I get attacked for having progressive policies. I get attacked because I talk to Republicans. Well, that's not my problem. You know, I can't take that on. I just focus on the end goal, and that's to pass these things, because people should not be waking up on concrete. Kids should not go in a pandemic and not have a computer or internet access. Mom should not be waiting 2 hours for diapers. Brad shouldn't be banning Bitcoin when we have kids in our district and moms and people that have invested in this, and you're trying to have them lose everything that they have. It's the injustice of it that keeps me going. So my morals and values are my parents, and I'm just really also really want to show that we can have different governance. Mm-hmm. That we can have someone that really cares and that is really fighting for the people. Like I think that I would just be, God, wouldn't that change politics? That you can win this stuff without selling out, without wavering on who you are as a person, and be rooted in community service, and you can win that way. That's a winning strategy, you guys. You could do it this way. You don't have to give the sound bites and all the bullshit that everyone knows is bullshit. We all know people aren't dumb. So let's try to win something the moral, just way, and just speak truth to stuff. Even if it hurts, I'm sure I'll get pushback. Oh, everyone should get the participation trophy. Well, I don't agree. But give me evidence that leverages people, and I'll change my position, right? So we just have to be unapologetic, you know, but with good character.
That was the best campaign speech I've personally ever heard. Your passion is just infectious. I'm so happy we have someone like you running. Just to wrap up, I mean, last two questions I have. If you could look back, if you could actually teleport yourself back to when you were a kid growing up, what would you tell her?
How would I tell my younger self? Okay, I don't know what it is about you, but you're going to be very personal. But so something that I struggled with when I was a teenager was suicide. I was suicidal when I was in middle school. And I never publicly even told anyone this, but it was something. It's who I am. It's a part of my past. I would tell my younger self that if you died, it would matter.
Well,
I would tell myself that if you died, it would matter.
what got you there? I mean, what happened?
I think I've always been kind of like, I've always been the outcast and like I'll always speak up for things and it rubs people the wrong way. Like I don't just fall in line. I've never been a person that just like falls in line and just does what they're told because they're told to. If it's right, sure. If it's not, well, why are we doing that? Like, so I've always been the person to not. So that I had struggles socially because I don't just like try to fit in all the time. And so I it was hard to reconcile a lot, and I would feel really down, and I went through periods where I didn't really have strong, legitimate, meaningful friendships and things of that nature. And so now that I see myself at 36 and all that I've achieved and the kind of person I am, whether someone likes me or not, I'm like who I am as a person because I think I'm about something. Even if people disagree, like I know intrinsically my intention and what motivates me. And when you are suicidal, a lot of times what you think about is no one would care if I wasn't here. It doesn't make a difference. Like I'm not seen, I'm not heard, I'm not respected. But 36, when you have like kindergartners that think that you're a superhero and are inspired to design or whatever, students that come back 8 years later that says you are the reason why I'm at Yale or whatever, or wanting to be on your, I mean, it's like, well, maybe I do exist. Maybe I should be here. Maybe that's my purpose. Like, I don't know what it is. I'm still figuring that out. I'm 36. I'm still trying to figure out like, what's my purpose? Maybe this is like my calling. I don't take opportunities for granted. There was an opportunity to run for Congress. I took the opportunity. Where that will lead, I don't know. We'll see.
I love it. You are just so incredibly inspiring, and I think you just sharing that. I really think it's important to share things like that because people will relate, and I'm sure that you will bring hope to people out there listening who maybe were in the same boat as well. And so I admire you and thank you for sharing that. My last question, I guess, will just be: when you get to Washington, what's going to be the first thing you do related to Bitcoin?
I'm very excited about this, but I think we need a Bitcoin caucus.
Perfect.
I think we need a Bitcoin caucus. I think the reason why is because something that I appreciate about the Bitcoin community, no matter who it is, everyone appreciates being called a learner, that they're still learning about Bitcoin. And I believe in being a lifelong learner. I think that's really important. I need our legislators to be lifelong learners. And I think if you have a Bitcoin caucus and you have a collective group of people from across the political spectrum that have voting leverage, it could be a very powerful thing. And I thought a lot about this. I think that could be a very powerful thing if we had a bipartisan Bitcoin caucus to leverage votes with policy. You scratch my back on foster care reform. Maybe I'll be more open to this, or maybe you don't ban, like, well, we're not going to vote. We're not voting for that if you're going to ban this. You get what I'm saying? That will be my first thing with Bitcoin specifically. And the second thing is, I think this is important, is financial literacy. I think we need, because I want to serve on the Education Labor Committee in Congress. And then maybe a sub would be the oversight. But I think financial literacy needs to take precedent in policy.
I love it. Aarika, this has been such a joy. I'm so excited for you. I'm grateful to have someone like you running, especially in my city, my old district. I wish you all the very, very, very best, and I hope to see you at some fundraisers. I believe in vision boards too, and I can see you up there. I know I'll be watching you someday on C-SPAN. So
appreciate it. Thank you so much.